What joke do you tell when someone asks you to tell a joke? We lost our father after an accident because we couldn't remember what blood type he had to tell the EMT. Dad kept screaming for us to be positive, but it's really hard with him gone. A man is at a funeral of an old friend. He approaches the dead man's wife and asks if he could say a word. The wife says that yes, he could. The man stands up, clears his throat, and says plethora. The wife smiles and says thank you. That means a lot. Guy yells to a stranger across the river, I need to get to the other side. Stranger yells back, you are on the other side. Why do chicken coops have 2 doors? Because if they had 4 they'd be chicken sedans. My family is so tired of this joke, but it makes me cackle every single time. Edit. Holy crap, thanks for the gold, kind redditor. A woman walks into a bar and orders a double entendre, so the bartender gives it to her. What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One is really heavy, and the other is a little lighter. What's the best thing about living in Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag's a big plus. My girlfriend asked me to stop playing Wonderwall on guitar. I said maybe. What do you do if you see a spaceman? Park your car, man. What do you do if you are attacked by a group of clowns? Go for the juggler. A piece of string walks into a bar. The bartender sees him and says, hey, don't serve your kind here. Get out. The string walks outside and runs into a woman, whom he asks, ma'am, would you mind tying me in a knot and brushing my ends out? The woman complies, and the string walks back into the bar. Upon seeing the string, the bartender shouts, hey, aren't you that same string I kicked out earlier? The string sits down at the bar and replies, nope, I'm afraid not. How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? 0. Or thief broke into the police headquarters during the night and took all the toilets. Cops say they have nothing to go on. Depends on how dark their sense of humor is. If light-hearted, it's usually just a simple one like, do you want to hear a ghost joke? Sure. That's the spirit. A guy and girl are on their 4th date at a fancy restaurant. Things are getting serious. They meet eyes over the menus. Giggle and blush. The guy looks at the girl and says I'm not sure how to say this. The girl responds excitedly. Just say it. Just say it. Guy, Worcestershire. A Roman walks into a bar, holds up 2 fingers, and says 5 drinks please. A man is sitting with his 3 daughters having breakfast and the middle daughter asks, Daddy, why am I named Rose? Dad explains, well, Rose, in our family, we have a tradition that we put the baby in bed and put a bunch of different flowers above her on the bookshelf. The first one to wilt and fall onto the bed is what we name her. And since the rose petal fell on you first, that's why we named you Rose. The oldest daughter said, oh, and that's why I'm named Lily, because the lily petals fell on me first. That's right, Dad said. And the youngest daughter said, Heffenblam, and Dad yelled, quiet, bookshelf. A man walks into a bar with a tiny man on his shoulder. The little man can't be a foot tall, and is wearing a tuxedo. The man bellies up to the bar, sets his small friend onto the bar, and pulls out a tiny keyboard for the tiny dude, who begins playing. He then orders a round for the whole bar, and pays in exact change. Curious, another guy walks up, and asks what's going on with all of this. Well, starts the guy, I was stranded on a desert island, and I found a genie. I wished for a perfect amount of money to come out of my pocket anytime I needed it. A way to get home obviously, and his countenance changed. The minute musician started playing a somber tune. Well, I think the genie had sand in its ears. Do you really think I asked for a 10-inch pianist? Why do scuba divers fall backwards out of the boat? Because if they fell forwards they'd still be in the boat. I think this one is pretty old, but I used to use it as a silence breaker a lot. A man opens his door and finds a snail on his front porch. He picks it up and throws it across the street. A year later the man opens his door and finds the same snail on his front porch. The snail looks up and says, what the frick was that all about? Why did the old woman fall into the well? Because she couldn't see that well. I love to tell dad jokes, but I don't have any kids. I guess that just makes me a forkspa. Knock knock. Who's there? To who? To whom? Why do Swedish warships have barcodes on them? So when they return to port they can Scandinavian. What do you get when you cross a joke with a rhetorical question? An Englishman, a Frenchman, a Spaniard and a German are all standing watching an American street performer do some juggling. The juggler notices the four gentlemen have a very poor view. So he stands up on a wooden crate and calls out, "Can you all see me now?" "Yes." "OUI. Jap." A boy asks out the girl of his dreams to prom and she says yes. He goes the limo rental and there's a line. He goes to the tux rental and there's a line. He goes to buy a corsage and bouquet and even there is a line. Finally the night of the prom he picks her up in the limo. She's beautiful and stunning. He gives her the bouquet and she's smitten. They get to prom and there's a line of limos. After the line of people to get into prom they finally get in and have an amazing time. They're dancing, noshing on hors d'oeuvres, talking and getting closer. His date's getting parched from the food and asks him to get her something to drink. Him, being a gentleman, says of course. He heads up to get her some punch. Lucky for him, there's no punchline. A man is arrested for killing and eating a bald eagle. He's brought in front of the judge to try to justify his actions. He explains, "I was lost in the woods and starving. I saw the eagle catch a fish in its claws. I threw a rock to try to make it drop the fish so I could eat it, but the rock hit the eagle and killed it by accident. I couldn't let it go to waste." The judge says, "That's understandable. I'll let you off with a warning." She beckons the man approach the bench and asks him in private, "Just between you and me, what does a bald eagle taste like?" The man says, "Somewhere between a spotted owl and California condor." How do you think the unthinkable? With an iceberg. A guy walks into a bar and asks for a pie and a pint and the bartender hands them over. He downs the pint, puts the pie on his head and walks out. The bartender thinks, "Well, that was weird." The next night the same guy comes in again and asks for a pie and a pint. The bartender gives him a funny look and hands over the pie and the pint. The customer downs the pint, puts the pie on his head and walks out. The bartender thinks, "No, right. What the frick is going on here? If he comes in again, I'm asking him about the pie." The next night the guy comes back again and asks for a pie and a pint. The bartender replies, "We're out of pies." "Oh, right. Pack of crisps then, mate." The bartender hands him his pint and his pack of crisps. The guy downs the pint, puts the crisps on his head and goes to walk out. The bartender calls after him, "No, hold on. I need to know. Why did you put the crisps on your head?" The guy says, "You're out of pies," and walks out the pub. Edit, having typed this out, it definitely works better verbally. 6:30 is hands down the best time of day. Well, I'm sure everybody here already knows about Murphy's Law, but you guys probably don't know about Cole's Law. Am I right? What's Cole's Law? Well, it's thinly sliced cabbage. Sometimes it has vinaigrette or mayonnaise. The trick is keeping a straight face. If you bust out laughing while saying it's thinly sliced cabbage, it loses some of its steam. But I've never not had this joke get a laugh. How do you find Will Smith in a snowstorm? Look for the Fresh Prince. Did you hear about the guy who had an orgasm every time he sneezed? His friend asked him if he was taking anything for it, and the guy said yeah, pepper. 3 cowboys are sitting around a fire comparing stories about who is the toughest. The first cowboy says, "Well, I had sex with 6 beautiful women and used nothing but a live rattlesnake as a condom." The second one says, "That's nothing, I met a mean 5,000-pound bull all muscle and anger. I punched him square in the forehead and he burst into a delicious steak dinner." The third cowboy sits quietly stirring the fire with his bean. Edit, bullseyes. Mr. Zero. A penguin's driving around when he hears his car making weird noises. Pulling up to a mechanic. He's told repairs are gonna take about an hour. Going into a nearby 7-Eleven. The penguin grabs an ice cream cone. Course penguins love that crap. Going back to the mechanic after having finished eating. He asks the mechanic what the damage is. The mechanic looks up and says, "Looks like you blew a seal." The penguin looks horrified, wipes its beak, and says, "No, I just ate some ice cream. What does a cannibal do after he dumps his girlfriend? He wipes his ass. A Spanish magician tells the crowd he will disappear on the count of 3. You know. Dos, and he disappears without a trace. Let's do a knock knock joke. You start. What's red and bad for your teeth? Two priests and an atheist are hunting in the forest. The atheist aims at a rabbit, misses his shot, and says, "God damn it, I missed." The first priest says the Lord will strike you down for using his name in vain. Later, the atheist aims at a deer, misses his shot, and says, "God damn it, I missed." The second priest says the Lord will strike you down for using his name in vain. Later, the atheist aims at a bear, misses his shot, and says, "God damn it, I missed." Just then, a shot of lightning strikes the priests, killing them instantly, and a booming voice from the sky says, "God damn it, I missed." Why did the bike fall over? It was too tired. Two condoms are walking down the street. They pass by a gay bar. The first condom turns to the second and says, "Hey, want to get crap faced?" Not a great joke with children. What's brown and rhymes with Snoop? Dr. Dre. What's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea? I've never paid to have a garbanzo bean on my face. Usually goes something like this. Them, tell me a joke. Me, oh dude, I heard this awesome knock knock joke the other day. Them, oh yeah. Me, yeah, it was hilarious. Here, start me off, and I'll show you. Them, oh of course. Knock knock. Me, who's there? Them. Ask me if I'm a tree. Are you a tree? No. Why was the little ink drop crying? Because his father was in the pen and he didn't know how long the sentence would be. When geese fly in a V shape, why is one side longer than the other? Because there are more geese on that side. What do you get when you mix a tortoise and a porcupine? A slowpoke. What do you call a magical dog? A labracadabra. 3 old women are sitting on a park bench when a man runs up and flashes them. 2 of the old women immediately have a stroke, but the third old woman couldn't quite reach. How come Mitchell J. Fox makes such good milkshakes? Pause. Because he is rich and buys high quality ice cream. I bought shoes from a drug dealer once. I don't know what they were laced with, but I was tripping for ages. Where does a king keep his armies? In his sleeveys. What does a buffalo say to his kid to send him off to college? Bison. 2 satellite dishes got married. The reception was excellent. Or, 2 invisible people had a baby girl. She wasn't much to look at. What do you call a wanking cow? Beef stroganoff. What is the difference between a gross bus station and a lobster with a boob job? One is a crusty bus station, while the other is a busty crustacean. Have you ever had sex while camping? It's freaking intense. What do you call a fish with no eyes? FSH. A cow walks into the woods. He looks up and sees a whale stuck in a tree. The cow asks, "Shouldn't you be in the ocean?" The whale says, "Yes." Alright, I know one joke. There's a mollusk, C, and he walks up to a C. What's ET short for? His legs are so small. I can't tell a good Batman joke to save my parents' lives. My girlfriend started smoking, so I slowed down and applied lubricant. Everyone here's probably already heard it, but so this guy's driving throughout the countryside enjoying the scenery when his car breaks down. Lucky for him, it broke down in front of monastery, so he walks up to the front door and knocks. "How may I help you, my son?" The monk says as he opens the door. The man says, "My car broke down. May I use your phone to call a friend of mine?" The monk lets him call his friend. After the phone call was over, he says to the monk, "He'll be here to pick me up. Unfortunately, he won't be able to pick me up until the morning. Can I spend the night here?" The monk nods, and a room is prepared for his stay. Later that night, the man was woken up by a sound loud enough to be heard throughout the monastery. He went back to sleep curious about it, but he decides that it can wait until morning. The following morning, the man asks the monk about the sound. The monk replies, "I'm sorry, I cannot tell you. You're not a monk. Despite being annoyed by the answer, the man shrugs it off and leaves with his friend, who had just arrived. About a year later, the man is driving through the countryside again, and his car breaks down again in front of the same monastery. He knocks on the door. A monk answers the door saying, "How may I help you, my son?" The man explains the situation and asks to call his friend. Same as before, the man has to spend the night. Later that night, the same sound as before woke him up. His curiosity sparked again. The man decides to ask a monk about it again before he leaves. The following morning, the man asks a monk what the sound was. "I can't tell you. You're not a monk," he replies. The man is more agitated than before, but he leaves with his friend again. Another year later, the man is driving through the countryside again. His car breaks down again. He asks to use the phone again and needs to spend the night again. The man is woken up by the same sound. At this point, he has to find out what this sound is. His curiosity won't be satisfied until he knows. The following morning, he asks a monk about it. "I can't tell you. You're not a monk," is his response. The man is more than agitated at this point. "Okay, wise guy, what does it take to become a monk?" he says. The monk smiles and says, "You must answer two age-old questions. 1. How many blades of grass are there in the world? 2. How many petals of flowers are there in the world? Once you have the answers to both of those questions, come back to this monastery, and we shall make you a monk." The man embarks on a quest to find the answers to these questions. The journey takes decades of his life, but he manages to acquire the answers. The man returns to the monastery and knocks on the door. A monk answers and asks, "How may I help you, my son?" To which the man replies, "I want to become a monk." The monk asks, "Okay, how many blades of grass are there in the world?" The man answers the question. Then, the monk asks, "How many petals of flowers are there in the world?" The man gives the answer to this question as well. "Congratulations. You are now able to become a monk at this monastery," the monk says. After becoming a monk, the man says, "Now, what was that sound I heard while staying here all those years ago?" The monk beckons him to follow him to a wooden door. "It's locked." The man says, "Do you have the key?" To which the monk replies, "Of course. Here is the key." The door opens to another door. This time, it's made of gold. The man asks if the monk has the key to this door. He does, and he gives the man the key. This door opens up to another door. This one is made of silver. Then this door opens to another door, and another door after that, until the pair have gone through a few dozen doors, all of them made of different materials. The pair come to the final door. This one is made of jade. The man asks for the key to this door, and the monk gives it to him to unlock it. After unlocking the door, the man opens it to quite the sight. It's beautiful near beyond comprehension. It's a sight to behold. Nothing like it has existed elsewhere on this earth. Do you want to know what it was? I can't tell you. You're not a monk. TL. Doctor, I normally tell this joke to get people to leave me alone. When they say tell me a joke, they never ask again after this. Why do cows have hooves instead of feet? Because they're lactose. What's black and has 12 nipples? The trash bag at the breast cancer clinic. And that is how you stop getting people to ask you for jokes. A Buddhist monk visiting New York stops by a hot dog vendor. The vendor says, "What can I get ya?" The monk says, "Make me one with everything." Two bananas are sitting on a riverbank when a turd comes floating by. The turd looks at them and yells, "Hey, come on in. The water's great." One banana looked at his buddy and asked, "Can you believe that piece of crap?" People are always so quick to tell Jewish jokes, but I really never found them funny considering my grandfather died in a concentration camp. Awkward pause and the person tries to comfort you. Yeah, he got wasted and fell off the guard tower. Super fricked up. Why does it take pirates years to learn the alphabet? Because they spend years at sea. A rich man and poor man are standing in line when they start to make small talk and realize that it's coincidentally both their wedding anniversaries with their wives. The poor man asks the rich man what he got for his wife, and the rich man replies, "A necklace from Tiffany's and a Mercedes-Benz." The poor man asks why and the rich man says, well, I guess if she doesn't like the necklace she can still feel good when she returns it in the Mercedes. The rich man then asks the poor man what he got for his wife and the poor man replies, slippers and a toy. The rich man asks why and the poor man says, well, if she doesn't like the slippers then she can go frick herself. Mitch Hedberg's one-lines are great and quick to drop. I used to do drugs. I still do. But I used to. I'm against picketing. But I don't know how to show it. I don't have a girlfriend. But I do know a woman who'd be mad at me for saying that. The depressing thing about tennis is that no matter how good I get, I'll never be as good as a wall. But I'm also a professional comedian and you don't steal jokes, so if someone's asking for one of my jokes I'll use some of my quick cheap one-liners like, to a midget, every candy bar is a king-size candy bar. I was a famous Etch-a-Sketch artist till that earthquake. I recently bought an HD TV. I don't have cable or satellite, but the picture quality of the static is amazing. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? A stick. I don't remember where it's from, but what's the difference between me and cancer? My dad didn't beat cancer. A bear walks into a bar and says to the bartender, I'll have a pint of drink and a packet of peanuts. The bartender asks, why the big paws? And the bear holds up paws and looks at them, says, I dunno, I was born with them. Two penguins are sitting in a bathtub when one says pass the typewriter. My dad said son don't wank or you'll go blind. I said I'm over here dad. What's the white stuff in bird poop? That's bird poop. Two fish are in a tank. One looks to the other and says do you know how to drive this thing? And conversely, two soldiers are in a tank. One looks to the other and says blow up below. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 is a registered 6 offender. What's the difference between a French kiss and an Australian kiss? The Australian kiss is down under. I'm Australian. Why can't dinosaurs clap? Because they're dead. You have to hand it to blind prostitutes. Why couldn't the lifeguard save the drowning hippie? Because he was too far out, man. I think asking someone to tell you a joke is a bizarre thing to do. A real Roman emperor style move. Entertain me, peasant. I have not laughed sufficiently yet on this day, and you will be the one to help me reach me quota of guffaws. I usually tell the longest shaggy dog joke I can remember all of at the time. Sometimes I'm too wasted to remember one of the more obscure ones, so I tell Norm Macdonald's moth joke instead. Anyway, here's one of my favorites. 2 punk lines. Even. A bargain. A bang for your buck. Archdeacon Frollo is looking for a new bell ringer because Quasimodo died, starving himself to death by Esmeralda's grave. If you know anything about the book, it's slightly darker than the film, but the problem for the Archdeacon is the same. The bells need to get rung, and he very well isn't going to ring them himself. So he puts out a notice that he's looking for a replacement for the dead hunchback. Frollo was nothing if not a bastard at heart, and decided to himself that it should be another freak of nature, a man or woman who did not belong in proper society, that should take up the job cloistered up in the bell tower. Food and lodgings would be provided, and one of the vermin the Archdeacon hated so much would be off the streets. Frollo's notice was a big hit, as many people wanted to have the honored position of bell ringer of the bells of Notre Dame. Up from the top, Archdeacon Claude Frollo could see the line wrapped around the church, all people wanting the job desperately. One by one, they climbed up the winding stairs of the Church of Notre Dame to meet the Archdeacon of the church Claude Frollo and audition as bell ringer. One by one, they descended back down the winding stairs of the Church of Notre Dame after the Archdeacon of the church Claude Frollo turned them away for either being too normal or an insufficient musical talent for such a prestigious position as the bell ringer at the Church of Notre Dame. The sun was getting lower little by little and Frollo was starting to give up hope. If he didn't find them by the end of the day today, he'd have to start all over tomorrow, or perhaps even have to ring the bells himself, which was quite out of the question. A man shambled to the top of the stairs and Frollo turned around. "I'm here to audition," he said, and Frollo took stock of him. He was average height, average build, with a smiling face and, Frollo noticed, no arms. The Archdeacon of the Church of Notre Dame, Claude Frollo, laughed for the first time in many years. "Thank you for lightening my spirits," he said. "But you have no arms to ring the bells with." "I'm sorry, only that you had to climb all this way for such a joke." "No, please," the man begged. "Let me show you. I can play the bells." Frollo stepped aside with his arms crossed and waited. The man stepped forward, pulled his head back, and slammed into the first bell with his forehead. Down the row he went and back again, playing a tune that Frollo once knew when he was a much younger man. Even his icy heart started to melt a little. The playing was perfect, and this armless man had full control of everything from the volume of each bell to the length the note was held with only his head striking them. Frollo grabbed him by the shoulder and wiped a tear from his eye. He led the man to the window overlooking the entire city, the window that would be this man's view for as long as he served as the bell ringer at the Church of Notre Dame. "Son, you have done me a great service, and will do this city an even greater one. Truly, you are the most talented musician in generations to grace our church. I'm glad my search found you." And Archdeacon Claude Frollo clapped the man on the back, giddy that his long day had yielded results. Now, there was only one problem. Without arms to steady himself, what Archdeacon Frollo thought was a gentle pat on the back actually sent this armless man teetering towards the window. Before Frollo knew what had happened, the man fell down the bell tower to the streets of Notre Dame. Frollo let out an ungodly shriek and sprinted down the spiral stairs to get to the ground. Out the front door of the church he flew, where a crowd had already gathered around the man who had fallen down from the bell tower of the Church of Notre Dame, dead and splattered on the ground. "Oh, Archdeacon Frollo, Archdeacon Frollo," shouted a woman. "This man, he fell from above, from the bell tower of the Church of Notre Dame." "Archdeacon Frollo? Who is this man?" "Well, I don't know his name, but his face rings a bell." Archdeacon Claude Frollo rang the bells himself the next morning grumpily. He'd lost his golden goose and needed to find another, so he put out another notice for the next afternoon, requesting that anyone interested, even those who had already auditioned, return and try again. He looked out from the top of the tower at the line already forming, even in the early hours of the morning. Surely one of these men or women would be a suitable replacement. "Archdeacon Frollo," said one of the deacons, "there is a man here, insistent to see you. He says it cannot wait." Frollo turned around and saw a perfectly normal man with an odd resemblance to his armless casualty the day before, with the arms. He didn't quite fit the bill Frollo was looking for, but before Archdeacon Frollo of the Church of Notre Dame could speak, this man started weeping openly. "What's the matter?" the Archdeacon asked. "The man yesterday who tragically fell to his death was my brother, Archdeacon Frollo. My own brother. His only wish was to ring the bells of Notre Dame. Musical talent runs in our family, and despite my own occupation as a cobbler, I wish now to take up his place and serve this great Church of Notre Dame." Frollo decides, just this once, to make an exception and see if this man truly does have the talent his brother had. He sent the deacons away and gestured for this new audition to begin. And begin it did. The man played with inhuman grace, better even than his brother, and Frollo felt a tear prick the corner of his eye. This was it. This was the future of the Church of Notre Dame. Frollo clapped despite himself, and the man pulled his arm back to strike the bell a final time. The end to his song. Suffice to say, the final blow never came. The man clutched his chest, gasping for air, and dropped to his knees. Frollo ran to him, but felt no pulse even seconds later. He died there, in the bell tower of the Church of Notre Dame, at the side of Archdeacon Claude Frollo. Frollo let out another inhuman shriek, and the deacons came running. "Archdeacon Frollo, what is the matter? Oh, God Almighty, what happened to this man? What was the name of the man that needed to see you so urgently and died here in our own bell tower in the Church of Notre Dame? I never learned his name, but he's a dead ringer for his brother.